Hello and welcome to another edition of In Convo with. This time I'm accompanied by two wonderful people. Nick from LESJAMUSIC, or how do you pronounce LESJA? Is it LESJA?
So if you're from the village in Norway
Okay.
that I have co-opted to name myself after, I think you say Lesja. Lesja music.
Lesja.
Lesja.
Okay. Lesja.
But I sometimes say Lesja, so it doesn't matter. Say what you like.
Okay. I'm gonna go with Lesja. I think I like that. And on another screen, it's Simon from Mosaic Tapes. Did I pronounce that right, or do you wanna correct me on that?
You do whatever makes you happy.
No, I do that already, but I want to be correct in stuff how I pronounce names, you know. Well, anyways, the thing is, what we're doing now is basically we're trying to promote her live gig, which is going to be on the 30th of March in South London. It's going to be pretty cool. And maybe Nick, do you want to tell a bit to our viewers what non-linear memories are?
Oh God, I wish I'd prepared an answer for that. You're really
don't worry about it. Just freeball it.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to do that. I can talk about why I'm excited about the show though.
Okay.
Non-linear memories sounded like a really cool name, and I think I remember the description not being incongruous with what we're doing. Here's why I'm like really excited about it. I think like I don't know about you guys, but I'm at a stage in my life where I am unapologetic for the type of music I like, and I'm not sure I was ever apologetic, but I'm really, really excited about getting really, really geeky and listening to some ambient drone music and listening to some of the best of it and some of the artists that I really admire, and being lucky enough to play alongside some of those artists, you two included. And, you know, like sometimes you might go to a festival and you might get one of those artists playing, but no, you've got like 3 in a night now. And if we can do that for 1 night, 2 nights, 3 nights, I think that's just going to be really good fun. And I think that, there's an opportunity to lose yourself in this music and to get really, really into it. And so that's why I'm really excited about playing alongside you two and planning a new, hopefully semi-regular night with the two of you as well.
Yeah, that'd be actually amazing. This is one of my questions, like for you two Londoners, because I live in Ljubljana and we do have a synth community, which I think is very special in a way for such a small city to actually have quite a lot of young talent, which more or less serves in the Eurorack world. But like talking about us or talking about you two going into a series of gigs and everything, like how would you describe the London scene when it comes to electronica, experimental music, stuff like that? Like maybe Simon, you could.
London's a bit of a weird one because there's so much going on that there's always something different going on. So I don't know there's necessarily like a specific scene. It's just so much going on all the time, which I mean, it's obviously good that you get such a lot of choice, but then it kind of, you might get a bit of, choice paralysis or whatever they call it, where you got too much choice. So yeah, there's a lot going on, and that could either be a good thing or a bad thing. We'll find out on the 30th. see who turns up.
Yeah, like I'm not a Londoner, so I used to be a Londoner, but I live just outside now. And so I don't know. I feel it's really rare that like there's a lot of people who make like ambient music, but there seems to be a very kind of like fairly small, let's say fraternity. It's not only men, but like there seems to be a fairly small group of like-minded ambient artists on Instagram who, like, I'm really excited about getting some of them to play the second night as well. We've discussed like potentially Sonora music playing and Cutlasses too. Mm-hmm. Like, excuse me, and you know, Andy, you couldn't come along because obviously it's a much bigger trip for you. But Simon and I went to Machina Bristronica and went to the Heinbach show there, and it was just wonderful. It was just wonderful because
so good.
There was a bunch of people who were there to see that music and were patient with it and gave it their full interest. And I don't. Maybe I'm looking in the wrong places, or maybe I'm too old to go out often enough. But like, I don't find a lot of that in London. Whenever you send me pictures of what's happening in Ljubljana, I think there's more happening there. And so I hope we can bring more of that to London. To be honest,
I mean, the thing is, it's probably to do with in which circles you hang out or in which circles you know. I think London being such a gigantic city, in a way, maybe acts in a worse way than Ljubljana does, because Ljubljana is basically small. You tend to meet, you know, a lot of people just by walking, and you go, oh yeah, you're that guy, or you know, you're that person.
I also
but
think
with
that,
London,
like,
it's just like, yeah.
There's also like another thing in London in that there's not a huge amount of like smaller venues that you can take a risk with putting a show on. Like, so when I was younger, we used to put on like punk shows, and you'd put it on at somewhere like the Garage or upstairs at the Garage in Highbury, and it would still cost like £600 or £700 maybe to hire the venue.
Jeez.
And it would make it a really, really stressful event because you had to try and make that back on the door. And more often than not, you'd end up having to, let's say you did it with 10 other people, everyone would have to dip into their pocket like, I don't know, 50, 60 quid each to cover the cost of the venue, because you hadn't got enough people through the door. But so I played a show in Margate a while back, and they've got a really good scene down there. Like there's loads of regulars, there's loads of really interesting stuff going on, loads of really interesting artists doing loads of different cool stuff. And I think it's because it's quite an artistic community. It's obviously smaller than London, but you have these venues that take chances on these kind of shows, and you know, they forego the fee to rent the venue, which makes it much more enjoyable for everyone involved. It means that you're going to come back and do it again. Because if you're renting, like hiring somewhere else, and every time you have to fork out £500-600, it's just like,
yeah, of course you're not gonna do it, right?
Yeah,
especially with music, like with, well, let's say way less mainstream look, such as ambient. Like I remember there was like this friend of mine, so like I've been doing, you know, I went from like folk to trip hop to like electronic music and everything like that, you know. And then I kind of found myself in ambient music, and it's just like, oh, you're just trying not to make money, which, you know, in a way,
to lose money.
In a way, it's true. Yeah. But weirdly enough, you know, since I've started doing like live shows with ambient stuff, and you know, I actually get gigs that pay, you know, that they
You've
fork
made it.
money
You're
for
a professional now.
I mean, the thing is, I think it's like a difference because like you guys are not in the European Union anymore, sadly. So maybe it's also where does the funding come from? Because like a lot of shows and a lot of, let's say, institutes that are here in Ljubljana, they are financed by, you know, using the European Commonwealth and all of that. You know, there are different commissions that come into play into doing that. So of course, like institutes get money, and they push that towards culture. So I think that's like in that way it's a bit different, because like in London, I imagine, you know, you have a small punk band, you're gonna fork like £1,000 just to play at a garage. You know, it's a different story. At least is how I see it.
But the weird thing is that like I don't think it's like the UK in general. So Nick was talking about when we went to Bristronica in Bristol, obviously, and I went out for breakfast on my own on the Sunday morning, and so I went out maybe like 10 o'clock in the morning or something, and I went to this really nice place, and as I was walking back, there was like live drum and bass gig happening just in some place, and there's just like stuff happening all over the place, and it just felt
awesome.
Yeah, it felt
Right.
like really alive and really like it was nurturing creativity in people, and you don't see that in London. You know, if you walk past a bar or something, generally speaking, it's going to be really inaccessible to normal people in terms of like putting something on there. Whereas it felt like Bristol, as an example, was much more welcoming to up and coming artists or just like people who wanted to do something creative in the city, and that made it feel way more alive. And when you come back to London, it feels. I mean, this is obviously just my opinion, and it's probably not the case for how everyone feels about it. But when I left Bristol and I came back to London, I was like, oh man, it's so.
But is that?
Just feels so.
I think that's fair, and I think I'm too much out of being any part of a scene to comment on this properly. But my kind of uneducated.
You are the scene, mate.
My uneducated. bless you.
This
Simon.
should be the new ambient label. Yeah, just you are the scene.
Yeah. My kind of uneducated view on it is like I used to, like a very long time ago, I used to work in the commercial music industry in London, and this is in the early 2000s, and like scenes were still happening, but they were very commercial and they were very Camden and very Brixton, and they were kind of drying up then, to be honest, as well. And I think probably if you were in London in the 70s, you'd probably say they dried up by the 80s. And so like, it's just a lot of London stuff has run its course, and the whole of central London, zone 2, zone 3 is so gentrified that there's no way a struggling punk band would afford to live there. And so, like, this isn't even like I know that we're getting off topic for non-linear memories, but like I'm very happy that we're doing it in Brixton. I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful that a venue like Spanners is happy to have us. And I hope that a few people come along that are into this kind of music and really enjoy it. And I hope a few people come along who are not necessarily into this music but are really open-minded and might enjoy like an A-7 chord stretched out across 24 minutes. Sorry, by the way, that's Simon. That's the beginning of Simon's set, by the way.
Yeah, that's my whole set.
Yeah, sorry.
But thanks for letting me know that what the name of the chord is, because I didn't know that.
yeah, fair enough. It's just like A minor, but you take one of your fingers off the strings, and so it's easier to play. That's what I remember. But anyway, back to the point is I guess like. I think of Berlin, right? And Berlin's still a place where you can go and come across something artsy and interesting and real. Maybe it is. Yeah. Maybe it is in London, but I'm just too old to find it. Maybe that's the answer.
But the good thing is that like so obviously I was like shitting on London, but the good thing is that we've got this venue. Well, yeah, we've got this venue where it's not an extortionate amount to rent it out. And like to echo what you're saying, Lish, is that I kind of feel like I really hope people come, but let's say worst comes to worst, and it's like just the four of us, like us three and Maggie, and we get to play like our nice instruments, and we get to play them really loud. That'll be fun, but hopefully people come and we can maybe like enjoy it with a few other people as well. That would be great as well. So hopefully
we can dedicate every set to the guy behind the bar.
For free drinks, everything. Yeah, sure. We should. But listen, you guys, you mentioned like stretched out chords and, being the quintessential sound of droney ambient, obviously, But in a way, there's a main difference in all of our I don't know, sets or all of our music in a way, but there's like a red line or like a red fret or like, sorry, I'm using Slovenian.
Red thread.
Yeah, red thread. Yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, we do have something in common when it comes to at least listening to your work, Simon, listening to your work, Nick, and of course, doing mine. There's this like essence of trying to get the organic sound through synthetic means, meaning through basically instruments that are more or less meant for electronic, you know. And this is something that I always find kind of interesting because, like, let's say I moved a lot from the acoustic music into more electronic, and yet I always am driven by shit that sounds organic, meaning may that be field recordings, may that be noise, may that be something that is more real rather than, you know, hooking up a D7X and just pressing, you know, a key. You know, there's a weird way of organics. So do you guys do that like intentionally, or do you search for that, or is that just like a result of your own sonic exploration?
I'll let Simon go first.
Well, yeah, I don't know. Like, I mean, Andy, you and I have kind of had this conversation almost not verbatim, but we discussed this kind of on our group chat because I feel like at the minute all I'm craving is almost like acoustic instruments. I'm really determined to go and learn. So I'm going to try and go and learn the saxophone or something like that. I just feel like it's an itch I need to scratch. And whenever like I'm using that, I don't think I'm going to use it for the gig, but I tend to like set up feedback patches. So although like it's synthetic, it's doing something which is unpredictable, and I think that's I think that's kind of maybe what you're getting at, and I think that's what I hear in your stuff as well, especially with the Seat Lombard stuff, is that you don't, if you're performing electronic music, I think if you have too much predictability, people, in my opinion, lose interest. Whereas if you've got every now and then it does something which even shocks you, it makes it keeps it interesting, like. And that's the almost mimicking the human element of things going wrong. Almost, you know, like it's kind of cool if you were watching, I don't know, At the Drive-In, for example, and two strings break on the guitar, but they still go. Or like, you know, the cymbals.
Yeah, but it's Omar Rodrigo Lopez, you know. So.
Well, yeah, no, but I mean, but do you know what I mean? That's what makes it exciting. That's what's the difference between listening to, I don't know, something on Spotify to going to a show, is having that kind of almost unique experience. So I guess, I don't know if that even really answers your question. I know, Lish, what do you want to add to that?
No, I think, Nick, just go right ahead.
Sure. I if it's okay, I will explain my theory of ambient music, which is look, speaking for myself, and I'm probably speaking for you too, I don't know as well, like, there were moments when you were like 8 or when you were 11 where you heard songs and there was a moment in a song which really made like the hair on the back of your neck stand up. And there were just moments in songs. And when you were young and you didn't understand what, like, and you're like, you didn't have to say, no, I'm into the coolest fucking post-punk band or something. You could just be like, no, I like genuinely whatever is in the charts or whatever. Like, there was almost a purity to that. And I think, and that's the reason I think actually a lot of like alternative music is influenced by popular music from 15 years before, because it's like, actually the kids who grew up listening to the pop ended up being in indie bands and then just, you know, copying those rhythms or copying those like melodies. Right. But I think that, I think the reason that people who listen to a lot of music often end up really enjoying ambient music is that that it's almost like a deconstruction of those moments, to borrow kind of like a chefy term, in that, you know, those moments in songs that we all wait for. And I'm thinking, like, you know, they're like, Radiohead are really good at this, like the ending of Morning Bell, right? Or a thought I had the other day was the moment after the second chorus in What's Next to the Moon by AC/DC, where Angus, and it might be the only AC/DC song where Angus Young doesn't solo for like 3 minutes. He just plays a little guitar lick, and then like Phil Rudd, the drummer, comes in, and it's like, yes, and it's like it does something to you that nothing else can. And I think kind of like, I'm comparing ambient music now with Radiohead and AC/DC, but it's like those moments that we really love when we're growing up and listening to music, and then you almost kind of go hunting for them in different places, and that leads you to alternative music, which doesn't often. Alternative music won't present you with those things so obviously. It will often present you with those moments in a more subtle way. And I think ambient goes even further in that it's like, okay, let's take this beautiful chord change and make it once. Make it just once and really build up to it.
You're totally right as well. Do you know what I've been listening to? Do you know what I listened to recently? And this illustrates this exactly. Is that I was listening to Seal recently, and you know the song "Crazy" by Seal. When it goes into like the final bridge, there's that tiny little change when he's going like. I'm not going to sing it, but there's that tiny little change when it just kind of like flips, and it's really dramatic and it does exactly what you said. Like it's almost chilling, and you're like, oh yeah, I'm going to take that and I'm going to stretch that out for 24 minutes, and then I'm going to release that. No, I'm not. But do you know what I mean? Like it illustrates what you're saying perfectly, and I totally get it. And it's really kind of quite spot on.
No, I mean, yeah.
Oh, sorry, you go first, Andy. You go first.
No. I just wanted to add a comment there because, like, you stated, oh yeah, it's like for people that really like music, of course they're gonna search for like different things, and of course they're gonna open up the doors, go into the whole alternative scene, and find like nooks and crannies when it comes to finding those little moments. And I think, yeah, feeling like you said, it's like in ambient music, you take that moment and you stretch it out completely. But there's a different thing. I think it's because like there's a very negative way of like seeing ambient music. You know, it's ambient. You push it off to the offside and you maybe do some work and you don't really intently listen to it, you know. Therefore, by some very, very orthodox means, that would be seen as lesser music, you know, because it's not supposed to be this way. Although with ambient, of course, you can throw it in the background, do whatever, but you do that with any music whatsoever. You don't, you know, if you really want to intently listen, you sit down, you listen to it. And you can do that even easier with ambient music, because for me, it's not just taking the moment, like you said, Nick, and then like stretching it out, but it's finding those little details in the textures, in the way how sound is set up, how the collage is kind of making its way, and you know, you're basically exploring that way. So in a sense, the way, because you love music and you will explore different kinds of music, different genres, different decades, different whatever, in the same way, ambient then feels explorational, because you're basically entering a world that is set up by basically a very linear way. It's just there. It's just like planes. But you find those details that make everything seem so interesting, you know. And this is something that I think I heard it from Ambelak as well, because like, it's finding those, you know, when you go for a walk, right? And you have taken the same walk each and every day or whatever. Let's say you go to work or whatever, and you take the same route, the same everything, but you see something that you never really took notice before, or something happened at that moment that really, you know, that was so small that didn't really have any substance to it, but you took that moment as something special, and you thought, oh yeah, I really enjoyed that I saw that in that particular second, in this particular route, which I have taken 10,000 times. But it's that feeling of exploration and being a bit surprised by it. So
the
yeah,
joys
sorry.
in the details, right?
Yeah.
Sounds like a non-linear memory.
Damn it.
Maybe.
Yeah.
We've come full circle to the definition.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, I think that's a keen observation. I think the second point I was just going to make was like I think and maybe I think this now, and maybe I didn't think this 20 years ago. I think that any music can have merit regardless of intent, and there is a fair amount of intent to music that's cynical, right? And I think that's come into ambient music recently, where you get reports of playlists of popular streaming services being generated on the cheap, right? And I'm like, well, if that's the music people want to listen to, let them listen to that, maybe. And now it's a shame that that choice is made not out of it's a shame if costs affect that choice more than personal preference does, and it's a shame if that music is so cynical that there's no kind of depth and artistry to it. But if someone enjoys listening to that more than they enjoy something that I ache over for 8 hours, then let them listen to it. And so I don't know what the point of this is, other than to say kind of there's something that like there is a lot of ambient music out there, and there's a lot of it that's not for me. And that's not that I don't think the artists are good, and it's not that I don't think the artists have merit, and it's not that I don't respect what they do. It's just that you mentioned movement at the beginning of your question, and a lot of the ambient music that strikes a chord with me has kind of that infinite movement going on. It has something broken about it, but not just broken in one dimension, broken in several. And I think that's what brings us all together. We'll go searching for that one piece of, I mentioned Jutfix modules. I'm going to give them a plug now. I'm going
Go for it.
There we go. I'll just put it into the bit of the camera that's right. We go searching for that last.
Can you just sorry, Nick?
Yeah.
Can you just explain what that is? Sorry, sure. I saw it, and I'm a bit clueless when it comes to that. Is it bug brand or what? What is that?
No,
it's not
exactly.
exactly.
It's Eurorack.
It's Eurorack.
Uh-huh.
It's a manufacturer called Jutfix, who I from time to time make videos for, and I'm making a video guide for his phaser, which is called the Q. And this is Jutfix, like it's a phaser that's based on the old Love Tone Doppelganger, so a really kind of posh OTA-based phaser. But it's also got this old telephone chip in it that you can engage and just make things sound really fucked up and different. And that's kind of like, to the point on broken and distorted, it's like, I will go looking for every sort of thing to make my music sound lo-fi in a slightly different way, and that's a slight obsession. But it's because I like things sounding roughed up a bit.
What do you think that we tend to resonate so well with lo-fi aesthetics, especially like in this ambient circles or whatever, like, because I'm the same. I tend not to like something that's purely synthetic, or that sounds. I wouldn't say digital, because obviously I enjoy digital as well, but I would say more more robotic in a way. Like, for me, lo-fi is like the answer to the humanist feel in electronica. It's like, I think we resonate with noise because it makes us feel all fuzzy, because we, being in the age that we are, tend to remind us of simpler times, and I think that kind of works great with iPsyche. So I'm kind of curious, like with Generation Z and Alpha, not growing up with tape players and vinyl and whatever, like, at least in that sense, will there be a different shift? I'm sure it will be, but I just don't know in what way.
Well, I mean,
yeah, sorry.
I guess the classic example of that is the the Chase Bliss pedal lossy, which I guess if
good hurts,
yeah, exactly. So if like all of us are interested in like broken tapes and stuff, and then we would have encountered like when the internet first started and that dial-up sound and the 96 kilobytes, whatever it is, not sample rate, the really crappy MP3s had that weird sound to it. I mean, I don't know if I would necessarily search to replicate that, but maybe that says more about where it sits in my, I don't know, memory. But then other people who won't have engaged with it at the same age or in the same way might find it pretty interesting. And I'm not suggesting it's not interesting. It's obviously, but to me, it's the sound of downloading like Big Pimpin' from Napster and it sounding terrible. Don't laugh like you didn't do the same.
No, I did.
We all did.
Yeah. What about you, Nick?
But I think you're right though that it's. I think that maybe for me, I think it's you could easily have 4 droning chords one after each other, and it seems like quite an easy way to produce something that would be categorized as ambient, but for me there's not much personality and no human element to that, and I wouldn't be interested in releasing that as myself because it just doesn't feel like it's adding anything for anyone to find interesting. But if you've got the unpredictability, the worry that something is going to completely come off the rails, that's probably just a bit more interesting.
I kind of have, I guess, 2 unconnected thoughts to that. I think I'm a real child of my teenage years, and I think the records that were released when you were the ages of 16, 17 and 18 really stick with you. I think Simon and I were having this conversation recently, and it's like you try and escape them, but they're always there in some way.
What are they?
Whether it's well, I'll come back to that. I'll come back to
Napster downloading memory.
Big Pimpin'.
Yeah, isn't that because I was wondering about what if I was I wasn't in Detroit in 1988, but if I was and people had been listening to punk music 10 years earlier, maybe the clean sound of an 808 and all of that stuff would have really turned me on, and that would have made me dance, which is different. And I think the first electronic, I think Music Has the Right to Children was released when I was 19 or 20, I think. And I was just lucky that it was released at a really formative time for me, because a lot of the electronic stuff I'd heard up until then was very clean sounding. It was, Orbital or Underworld. And I was interested in that music, but it didn't really, really, really turn me on. But I guess, if I'd never listened to Music Has the Right to Children, I never would have discovered, I never would have discovered stuff like Fennet, right? And I never gone down that route. I never would have opened the door to things like Tim Hecker and All of This World. And so I think moments and childhood are important. And whether it's you reminiscing about something that happened in your childhood or railing against it also. And the second thought I had was I think there are, I can think of some synthesizer music that I like that is really clean sounding, but I would just never want to make. And I've got all the gear to make it, sitting behind me here. And I've tried.
Yeah, it's basically like synthwave. Yeah,
exactly. And I like some synthwave music. It's great, and it's got its place. But the context I listen to it is probably completely different to the context at which I'd listen to like an ambient record. And ambient records, there are ambient records that I have listened to that I've probably listened to as much or if not more that I did those records that came out when I was 16, 17 and 18. And so it's kind of like, it's just means that little bit more to me. And so I don't 100% like dislike music that sounds clean. I just wouldn't, I don't think I would be particularly good at making it.
No. I mean, I totally agree, because like, you know, when you have like a broader when you have a broader appeal for different genres and everything like that, of course, like there are stuff that you can listen to and really enjoy it, but you would never know how to either recreate or throw yourself into that or stuff like that. You know, it's just like that. You know, I like to listen to black gaze and, you know, post metal or whatever, like, but I'm never gonna pick guitar and start droning that stuff. You know,
you should.
It's a different thing. But there is something, Simon, that you said that kind of made me wonder how you guys basically process this, because like when you go to create, let's say, a track or a record or a you know, like a EP, whatever, do you have any intent before you start messing around with synths or messing around with gear? Like, how does that usually happen?
I never create anything with gear ever. So like, everything I create is in Max on my computer.
Okay.
So I only ever use the gear for like playing live. So whenever I've used that, it's always been the computer's been the sound source, and that's manipulated it. But for me, I've never. It's when you say like intent, do you mean almost like a concept or an idea of what you're trying?
Yeah. Do you have an idea before you open Max? Do you have a kind of like, I want to make a song that sounds like this, or are you just going in and noodling?
No. Yeah. Well, so for me, I've always got to have like the inspiration to create something, and I know how I want it to sound, and then I think for me, it's all about feeling inspired to do something, and I have tried to create stuff when I've not felt inspired, and I've always just been like got really frustrated and never created anything I like, so. It's almost like a snap reaction to being like, okay, cool. It almost like it's go time. Let's go. This is now I'm feeling in the right place to create something, and then I'll almost literally like feel like that for maybe like 2 weeks, and I'll create a whole album in 2 weeks or even less, and then it will just go. What about you, Andy? Like what's your process? Because I know from when we've spoken about this before, you're much, well, correct me if I'm wrong, you're much more focused around like a concept that's quite important to you, right?
Yeah. I think that came like from, I don't know, man. It's just like, I think I just really enjoy narratives and stories and atmospheres based around that. Like, I always like, the older I get, it's always like I start really thinking, okay, would I actually release this? You know, would I actually, is it something that I made that would make sense being present or being alive in the actual world? You know, so there's that knocking feeling of it. But in a way, like, especially now doing like live performances and stuff like that, I have way doubled down on the concept thing. Like, going into just a simple performance for me, like, really like starts knocking the brain. Hey, you know, of course you can improvise and do that. I mean, I think Ambient's pretty great at just fucking around with gear and then sound comes out. But like, for me, I just need a narrative, I need a story, and I need to tell something that I think, for me, like personally, subjectively, makes sense to do, to actually give it a reason to exist in the world, because I want to tell you something. I want to say something through this piece that is that I have created. And like when I had a gig at like this venue in Ljubljana, and then I made an album, As Above, So Below. Like the whole concept there was basically seeing sound coming from different sources,
So cool.
Starting in the ground as insects rumble, then moving towards air with birds, squirrels, whatever, and then going even beyond that with bats and ultrasound. So everything like has to have like this meaning. So this is how I will conceptualize it, this is how I will create movements, this is how I will try to do that. And with any release, it's the same kind of way. I think the only release that I did with 2 round robins that didn't really have any concept of sorts, even that had was this like park pathways, which was just me experimenting on Norns, going to the park and doing that. But that, in a sense, that's a concept as well, isn't it? Yeah, it's like that. What about you, Nick?
Nick.
Oh yeah, you wanted to, yeah.
Sorry, Simon, what were you going to say? You go.
No, man, you go.
Okay.
Okay.
I wish I was as deliberate as Andy is. Like, when I made my the first Leisure Music record, which is the only Leisure Music record, it's called Leisure Music is Lost. I knew what the title of the record was very early on, and I knew I wanted a vibe to it. But if I'm honest, what I did was I went back through everything that I'd recorded over the past 3 or 4 months and was like, oh, I like that, I like that, I like that, and then stretched it into. And so it was. I did have a theme, but I didn't create music to that theme. I curated music that I'd made before to that theme, if that makes sense. And then of course. And then I wish I had your deliberate approach, Andy, and Simon, I wish I had your work ethic, because then it would take me a lot more than 2 weeks, because then I would just be basically driving myself insane trying to make very small changes happen within those things and trying and then deciding whether they need a bass line or not, or like then aching over small bits of them, versus some things that I'd complete very quickly. I think there's but there's some beauty in that as well, right? Like there is beauty in creating it almost almost in a beat. Yeah, instantaneously. The one exception on the record is a track called The Bygones, which is I think the most played track on the record, which was some guitar I recorded into Coco Quantus in an afternoon, and then it was going around in my head, and I just heard a horn part in my head. And I was like, oh, I love that. And I heard it. And to your point on and so it was deliberate. I then I found some horn samples and I queued up what I thought were the chords that I could hear in my head. And then I mucked with it. I probably did a little bit, another couple of hours of post-processing on it, and it was done. And that's probably one of the best things I've done. And it was much, much, much more simple. So that probably tells me that it's like, I guess it's like, if you've got really good raw stuff that you're really happy with, you don't have to do much to it. If you've got stuff that's kind of interesting, you have to kind of work it more. Maybe I should. Maybe I should just do what Simon does and wait for that inspirational moment, because then that takes over more.
The other thing,
what inspires you?
Good, the other thing that's probably quite good about the Mac stuff is that it's always single take. I never have any stems, so if I mess it up in that take, then there's nothing I can do about it. Yeah. So it's almost like everything is a snapshot. and you might go in and like add a bass line afterwards or whatever, but generally speaking, there's not much you can do about it. Also means that you can never perform a song as it is recorded live because
I've got
there's
no
nothing
hope.
you can really do. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I've got no hope.
But that's quite good because I think that probably I would end up just agonizing over it and second guessing myself the whole time. But with this, is not really much opportunity to do that.
I think that's true. I mean, feeling fuck, where was I wanted to go with this fucking question? Sorry, can I just cut there? Viewers, ignore this part. What inspires you, Simon? Like, because you said inspiration is quite a big friend to you. Like, what are things that inspire you?
Do you know what? Like, I think it's like the weather is a big factor for me. So throughout the winter, I'll have nothing. I'll not want to do anything. But as soon as it starts getting to spring, I'll start feeling better about things, and then like everything just feels better. So I'll like listen to some music on a walk or something. I'll be like, yeah, this is awesome. It's making me feel so good. And then I'll be like, yeah, I'm like feeling really good about things, and I'll go and make something. And I think like spending time with other people, like when I hang out with you guys, it always makes me feel more inspired to make stuff. I think that like I get a lot of energy from conversations we have. Like obviously Nick and I hang out more often than you and I do, Andy, for geographical reasons. Not
obviously, yeah.
Yeah. And like it's nice to be able to spend time with someone who you like as a person, but you have so much common ground with, and you can have these conversations that you generally like don't get to have in real life, and it's just all about like almost like the transfer of energy, just getting energy from someone. Like we riff off each other. Like I don't know, that I think that's probably where most of my inspiration comes from. Just like, you know, having good times with friends and like getting to be outside and it's the days being brighter. Makes me sound pretty basic, but it doesn't. I guess it doesn't take much.
It doesn't
but
at
it's
all.
kinda...
And like, firstly, Simon, like right back at you. But also, I'm not a figment of your imagination. I'm a real person. Like, if you said you don't have those conversations in real life,
that, yeah.
I'm like, we're not, we're real friends, Simon.
Yeah, but I just want to ask you here, Simon, because like you stated like, you know, as your inspiration, like so beautiful, so like positive things, but then like listening to your music in a way, like it sounds, at least to me, it sounds very dark, which I like. But I'm just kind of like curious how that kind of shapes. I
mean, probably just the type of music that I like. Mm-hmm. Like generally speaking, I'll listen to a lot of, like, my music taste is pretty grotty. Like my background is punk and like screamo, like proper screamo. And like that's what I used to do when I was younger. I was in a screamo band. And so I really like gravitate towards much heavier, more distorted sounds. And to echo what Nick was saying, like in terms of like artists that I would seek to emulate is always Christian Fenez or Tim Hecker. Those are like the two beacons for me of who it like they're like the perfect artists. And if I can get anywhere to sounding anything like either of them, then I feel like I'm on the right track. So even though like and also I think that like those heavier in inverted commas, those darker sounds, I think that they kind of strike more emotion in me. They make me feel like I want to kind of feel quite intense emotions when I'm in the stuff I'm making. And maybe for me, it needs to be loud. It needs to be grotty. It needs to be distorted. You know, I think for it maybe, and I'm not suggesting that, you know, twinkly stuff is bad, and I'm not saying that at all. But for me, it doesn't make me feel the same way that, you know, a processed guitar through a bit crusher into a reverb does, for example.
What about you, Nick? What inspires you?
That's like I really, really, really just enjoy the creative process. And when I was like in my early 20s, I had like a guitar and an Akai head rush. I still have it somewhere. I think it's in the loft over there. So, but I could get it out and show it to you. And it still works. It's a great pedal. But I just had my my Fender Tele, that, and an amp. It's before I bought any synths, and it has a looping. It has like a tape head delay, a digital delay, but it also has a looping feature. And I discovered that by playing loads and loads and loads of things on top of each other, by sound on sounding the loop, and it had what that pedal has. It had a really good implementation of the sound on sound, because you could there was potentially a click when you came to the end of the sound, but then the record would tail over on the next overdub, and so everything became this lovely wash. And I made loads and loads of music just with these things, and now I'm older and I spend more money on gear, and I spend too much money on gear and end up going too shallow with too many pieces of gear, but I feel tremendously blessed and lucky to be able to do that. And I still think that the fundamental heart of my music is looping. I was very lucky to be one of the first to play with Cutlass's looping module, Gloop, the glitchy looper. Mm-hmm. And I was even luckier to be able to give him loads of feedback along the way and say, I'd like this, and lots of it he put in it. And so... but that the Coca Quantus, I've got so many loopers in this room, and I think it all started there, where I was just kind of creating, as you said right at the beginning of the call, taking organic sound or taking synthetic sound and making it sound organic, taking organic sound, making it sound synthetic, and so make a bunch of that stuff. Throw an FE1 reverb on it, and I'm in heaven, and that's enough inspiration for me. That every so often I'll hear something that'll that's either so good that it makes me want to create better music, or it's so good that it makes me want to give up. But usually, thank goodness, it's the former. I think maybe my family might say it should be the latter more often. But every so often I'll hear a record, and it probably won't be an ambient record, where I'll be inspired to make the ambient version of that, I guess. And
yeah, because it's just texture. It's literally just trying to get the essence and stretching that essence. Yeah.
Stretching the essence. That's what inspires me.
Here's a question. What are you preparing for? Do you guys have anything prepared for linear notes? Or no, sorry, not linear
for
notes.
The gig in less than a month's time.
Yeah. Non-linear memories, of course. Yeah.
4 weeks minus 1 day. Simon, I'll let you go first.
What am I preparing for in terms of
if you have any ideas,
is your set ready?
Yeah, I wouldn't say the whole set, but just idea wise, do you have anything that you're thinking that?
I have an idea. I think I know what I'm going to do. So I kind of go through cycles of wanting to just use small amounts of stuff and be able to throw everything in the backpack, and then I'm done. So I think I'm going to put Norns into the Coca Quantus and then send it all into Pool, and that's what I'm going to do. So at the minute, and it changes almost by the day. At the minute, I've got Pool has got like, I think I've got like 7 flops playing 7 different field recordings. I've got 2 granulators playing just 2 samples, and then like a load of effects. And then I'm gonna just play sines on Norns, and then
Oh
loop
yeah,
loop
yeah.
it. And then so my idea is, and it's worked once and it didn't work the second time when I tried it. But the only connection I'm gonna have on the Coco Quantus is I'm gonna like connect one Coco to the other, so I have a stereo signal.
Oh yeah, stereo thing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then as I go along, I'm going to connect everything, and it worked. Yeah, as I said, it worked once, and then it sounded terrible the second time. So, could work. We'll find out.
50-50, yeah.
Exactly. But it's quite a nice kind of pure way of doing things. I think just playing with the signs. And then having just the field recordings. It's just it seems to be like what I want to do at the minute. Have you started preparing for what are you going to do the same set that you did in Ljubljana, or are you going to do something different?
No, something different because we're still figuring out if we can take the violin on the plane yet. So it's gonna be
Really?
like, yeah, it's just like it's a question because like it's a it would just like cost us a lot just to add that to the whole thing, but we'll see. But also the thing is, with me, I just wanna whenever there's a live performance, I wanna try something new,
Same.
see something else. But the thing is, what I'm thinking is I'm probably gonna go with Forester as my main field recording playground. I'm probably gonna borrow a Coco Quantus from one of you guys, and there's probably gonna be Norns. But like with me and some acoustic instrument or something like that. Like me and Maggie will have to decide what would be the best way. But the thing is, I really want to do something that would, like because I talked about concepts and everything like that. I want to do something that's close to my feeling or my personal experiencing London, because I've been to that city many times. I've never lived there, but I almost treat it like as my second home, as me and Maggie like each fucking year would go to that city. So I guess it's just like I want to create a concept based around that in a way. So I think I have a lot of things to think about when it comes to that, but hopefully it will be special.
That's exciting.
Nick, well, we'll see. Nick, what about you? What do you have prepared or are thinking of preparing?
Yeah, it's interesting because I've spoken to Simon about it like 3 or 4 times in recent weeks, and he's come full circle. And and saying that is like it's like none of that gear that he mentioned was in his the last thing he said to me. So I mean, yeah, exactly,
totally.
Yeah, so I'm interested to see where it gets to. There's part of me that's trying to get a discipline of not a discipline so much, but like. The extent of my preparation is knowing I know exactly how I'm going to prep. It will be all new material, maybe involving some samples from my record. So it might be, for example, that I use some samples from my record to construct new stuff. Just so there's some familiarity for the one person who might be in the crowd who knows my record. Or two. But there's a I haven't done this creative process for a while, and the reason I haven't done it for a while is I've been so focused recently on making videos. I've been lucky enough to be asked to make videos for a few providers that's taken up all of my music time, whereas like it's much like Simon, I've got a go-to process, which is I will often take field recordings or guitar samples or synth samples, and I'll take them into Max, or I'll muck around with them first a little bit in Logic, and then they'll go into the ER301 in the modular case, and they'll go into either into manual grains or into one of the loopers in there, and then they'll go out via 4 mono routes to different parts of the case. And so the extent of my preparation has been 3 iterations on modular grid of what my 7U case is going to be.
And we have this conversation quite a lot as well.
we really do. We do far too much. But I think it's sorted now. I think I've realized if I take out the big mixer, I can have just a couple of mixers at the top, and it can have more room for stuff. At various points, big things have come out and then gone back in. But it's built around the 301 because it's like Max in modular, basically, for want of a better description to it. So everything goes, like most things go in there, and there'll probably be a synth voice in there, probably like just a basic analog subtractive synth voice, or the Bufacco Oniri module might go in there as. Has
it come back then?
A looper. It's gone back and it's coming back.
It's coming back.
So it went back to Elevator last week, and it's coming back this week.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Has the NerdSec come out, or is it still in?
The NerdSec's back in.
It's back in again.
Yeah, it's back in. But there's a couple of the red JupFix modules that are going in.
Okay.
And the Q phaser, the one I mentioned that's got the telephone chip in it, that's going in. The bunker archaeology, which is that one on the end, which is based on it's based on like an old reverb, digital reverb chip, and like with all JupFix things, he pushes it beyond where it's supposed to go, and there's like distortion and modulation to it.
Of course.
And so there's a lot of lovely samples going into the 301, and then a lot of stuff happening around it. And outside of that, there might be a Coca Quantus just sat outside, and there might be a guitar. I don't know.
Wow.
We'll have to see. I mean, man, your setup sounds complicated as hell, but I'm very excited for it. Okay, I guess we're at time now, when we'll have to invite the folks to come and see Nonlinear Memories. So 30th of March, Spanners Club in South London. I mean, which borough?
Brixton.
Is it Brixton?
Brixton. SW9.
All right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Get your tickets. Do the awesome thing. Also, for the last thing, guys, I want to...
If I wanted to come to the gig, where could I buy a ticket?
Oh, yes. Thank you very much. Totally non-scripted for this totally non-scripted question. You can buy the tickets, and just so I'm sure, you can buy the tickets at the is it ra.co raw tickets? Is it raw tickets?
Oh, Resident Advisor. Yeah, Resident Advisor. Well, if you were to go to the 2 round robins or the Mosaic Tapes or the LESJAMUSIC Instagram, you could follow the link trees at the links at the bio, and you will be able to buy a ticket.
Do the easy stuff and click on my links as well. So always good to do that. Okay, let's plug our shit. You can find me at 2 Round Robins. I do YouTube videos and I do music mostly. But Simon, where can people find you?
So on Instagram as Mosaic Tapes. I released the record at the end of last year, and I had a single with Jogging House that came out at the beginning of February, which is on Spotify and Apple Music and all that kind of stuff. So
go listen.
That record.
What about you, Nick?
LESJAMUSIC, LESJAMUSIC, both on Instagram and YouTube. Record out last year called LESJAMUSIC is Lost on Mystery Circles, that's available on Bandcamp and all good streaming services, and I think there might even be a few cassettes left as well. If you can't find one, you can message me. I've got a few. And on Instagram, you can
come to the show and buy.
Come to the show and buy one. Yeah, very good point. Come to the show and buy one. And on YouTube, where you can find me do things like show you how this sounds, which was the video I made last week with the all mannequins skiff case, which sounded better. Better than I thought it would.
Sounds awesome.
It's my dream case, by the way. It's my dream case, just all mannequins. It sounds so wonderful.
Yeah.
Guys, thank you so much for joining me, and I look very, very forward to seeing you all in the end of March.
Same,
It's
man. Thanks for having
it's-
us.
Yeah, 3 or 4 weeks, right?
Looking
It's
forward
very,
to it.
very close.
Andy,
Yeah.
you're the best. Simon, you're the best.
Thank you. You are the best. All of you are the best. So thanks again for the viewers for taking the time, seeing us, and potentially coming to the show. So with that, I will say goodbye.